Hello and welcome along to another episode of My Football Story from the Honest Football Podcast. This week, Charlie gives us one of our most unique interviews yet as he talks to current Glentoran midfielder GAEL Bigirimana. GAEL talks to us about his incredible story growing up from being born in Burundi and via Uganda making it to Coventry over in England. He then talks about possibly the most bizarre way someone's entered a football academy before moving on to a senior career which included playing in Europe for Newcastle, playing and scoring in a Wembley Cup final for Coventry, and also playing in Scotland and the Northern Irish leagues for both Motherwell and Glentoran, his current club respectively. There's some incredible news about near misses on transfers as well, and most importantly, GAEL talks to us about international honours, getting the chance to represent England at youth level and what that meant to him, and then representing his nation of birth, Burundi, in the African Nations Cup in 2019. GAEL's also incredibly honest about the role his faith plays in his professional career, and we can't thank him enough for joining us and being so honest. So if you do enjoy it, please do chuck a thumbs up on the video, subscribe down below for regular content from the podcast. But this is GAEL Bigirimana's football story, and we really hope you enjoy it.
Delighted to say that GAEL's with us now, so thank you very much for obviously joining us. You know, you had a stunning win against Linfield last night, so I appreciate you sort of talking to us on your day off as well, so thank you for that.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure.
You've had such an interesting career. Of all the pros we've spoken to, you know, played, all over the place and represented international honours and all sorts. But what we like to do is always go back to the very beginning of your love for football, really. So just sort of take us back to that first ever football memory, whether it be playing outside or watching football on the TV. You know, what was that like for you?
Yeah, so obviously I was born in Burundi, and it's a small country in the east side of Africa. There's a love for the game. The love, people are passionate about football. And so just growing up, obviously, I'm the youngest of four children on my mom's side, and then my dad, there's 5 of us. So both sides, I'm the youngest. And so having 2 other brothers, seeing them playing football, and my family just always being about loving football, watching football, World Cups. And so, yeah, just going as a kid, following my brothers, just being almost like a ball boy and just sitting on the side. And even my sister, my older sister, she's more gifted than me, naturally gifted. So,
do you sort of remember, like, in terms of playing, were you that much better than everyone else? And also, I suppose, in our generation, there was a lot less in terms of, games and stuff. So even where I was from, playing football outdoors all of the time, do you think that gave you almost the skill set to make you where you are now in a weird way, if that makes sense?
Yeah, 100%. Just that competitiveness and that sort of fire for the passion for the game. When I went back last time, so it's almost like 14 years, 15 years, the street, they used to just be almost like dust, ground, and with a little bit of stones and a few little stones and dangerous pieces, but we didn't care. So we used to, there would be like a tournament. So, a team from on this street against a team on this street, they will form a team and we'll be playing on the streets. And then we'll give each other's name, like Nigeria, England, Brazil. And we were trying to make like shirts that symbolize, and we put names on there. So I remember one we did that we were Nigeria, and I was a Nigerian left back called Babayaro.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, I was a defender. Just loved tackling, just loved defending. Sometimes I'd go in goal, being as a child. So just being a child, just playing in the street and just solemnly focus on just the game and the joy and the happiness of it. So.
Having watched you play, I didn't expect you to say that you're sort of maybe your idol almost growing up was Celestine Babayaro, but I suppose that's the whole point of these sort of interviews, isn't it, in that sense? But do you remember, the first game that you'd watched live, whether it be on TV, and also actually the first ground you ever went into, like sort of proper football ground and watched the game?
Yeah, the first ground would be the National Stadium, which is still the same. It's been there for decades. The first tournament would have been either African Cup or the World Cup. I think it was the World Cup, more vividly the World Cup 1998. Obviously, Brazil lost. My family was Brazil, so I saw the devastation in there. I felt the devastation and the sadness.
So in terms of that, then obviously that's, you're talking about your time in Burundi. You then just sort of take us up to that point where you then got signed for Coventry, because I suppose it's not the most well-trodden path of a professional in terms of players going from Burundi to Coventry. Yeah. So sort of tell us that come about really in that sense.
Yeah, no, obviously my parents just felt like it was, what I know now and come to understand that I know it was God's will that my mom would leave and come abroad and to try to find and establish herself here so she can bring us here because just better education, better opportunities than obviously Burundi would be. And so they made a decision based on the children, trying to give the children the best possibility of success in life, I guess. So that happened, and we would separate between us. Me, my mom, she came by herself, and so such a strong woman, so that wasn't easy for her, but she knuckled down whatever she needed to knuckle down and worked and managed to claim us and invite us, so that was almost like 3 years nearly without seeing her. So, as a child, obviously I missed my mom, but because in Africa, you just saw families are so, close and your neighbors, you just interact with neighbors, you're not just staying in your house by yourself and, oh, there's a neighbor, but they're strangers. But it's just everybody's like interacting. So we ended up moving to Uganda. That's where we had to take a flight to come to England. And so in Uganda, it was the first place where I started to play real football, because in Burundi, it was just plastic bags. You get plastic bags and bomb them into football and you have some fun. You do some around the world with it. But in Uganda, that was where, yeah, like the proper football, but they were quite massive, big size, not size 5. And so we were there for almost like 1 year and a half, nearly 2 years, and that's where I started to learn English. Because in Burundi is French colonized, and so they speak French, and so but in Uganda is English colonized, so they speak English, they teach English in school, and they speak English. And naturally, about my knowledge of even the English league, that's where it started, because in Burundi at that time there was no Sky Sport, or there was a Sky Sport in Europe, but in Africa you'd use this channel called Super Sport. It's like a South African, and so through that, if you had that means, then you can do that. But on the daily TV and a normal TV, you'd get on Tuesday like a sports day where it's just flashes, just highlights of goals from like the French league. But then on the Champions League, actually, that's when you get to watch different games. They will put the different, and so you'd obviously Manchester, you see Arsenal and Chelsea, but you never really get the. I didn't even know about England, So there was me just being. I used to watch, Paul Scholes and Ryan Giggs, and it didn't seem real for me. I used to think like they were just as how like PlayStation. I didn't know. I don't think they're probably real people. But so in Uganda, they're big, massive Premiership, crazy fans. People bet their house, and they do. So that is where I started to get into like the Premiership, and then after that, by God's grace again, we managed to rejoin with my mom. So that was amazing. And then she was based in Coventry.
Well, just before we talk about that in terms of Coventry, I think it's probably, it'd be remiss of me not to say, I'd like to think that obviously, your mum must be looking after everything that she's done. She's so proud of, especially when we're sort of talking about you. I don't want to speak on behalf of your siblings, but just to see what you've achieved, and I suppose makes all of that journey worthwhile in the sense,
Yeah, 100%. And it's not been easy, as you said. Yeah, we just thank God, as it says in the Bible, you reap what you sow. So yeah, she, like you said, I'm sure it is. It's worth it. Not only for me, but my sister, she's doing the same. She's excelling in being a barber. So my other brother is doing really well. So yeah, it was the right decision.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you being so honest about that, and we echo what you say in that sense. So, but we'll carry on about your sort of career. So, obviously, you mentioned your mum was based in Coventry, but that part of the country, there's quite a lot of football clubs around that area. Obviously, you were excelling. Were Coventry the sort of first ones to show interest, or how did that sort of work that you then ended up getting signed by them full time, if that makes sense?
Yes, obviously, where my mom was based, it was weird, and this is when I know it's just know that I'm special, know that God was like, I was the righteous boy in my family, or the righteous person in all of Burundi. I'm not far from it. And so I'm not boasting that was why God chose me, but it's despite of anything that I've done. And so I just, looking now back, even sharing this, is crazy how where my mom was based and where Coventry Academy, the Alan Hicks Center, ended up being built, it was only over across the road.
Right.
And so even my mom being based, as you said, in the Midland, there's so many clubs. why was she not based in Birmingham, or why was she not based in London, or why was she not? So it was almost preordained for me to start my career at Coventry, and for this story that I'm gonna share to become what it is. And so anyway, I've been in Coventry in England for almost 4 months. I've just started primary school in year 6. I've just joined. Coventry used to train at the university camp. It was almost like 30 minutes from where my mom was based. So it was literally as soon as I think it was probably the same time that I just came to England that they moved from the university to the Alan Higgs Centre. Anyway, and near the Alan Higgs Centre there's a Asda shop. And so one day my mom saying it's only like 10-minute walk. So one day my mom at nighttime sends me and my brother, we're on the way. As we were walking to buy the milk, we get the milk. As I'm coming back, I looked over the road. I must have looked and see, people training. And then that's when the voice, it was like a still small voice in my mind that just said, go and ask to play, just like that.
Wow.
Didn't think anything of it. Anyway, the next day I went to school, come back, go to my mom, because I think at that time, around that age, if you needed to register yourself, you had to pay like £2 or something like that. That's what somebody said to us, because we asked if I want to go and train there, what do you have to do? And they were saying about, so I don't know if they were talking about more a young age, because at that time, obviously I was under 10, going to under 11. So I said to my mom, I went to my mom and I said, Mom, can I have £2 so I can go and register myself so I can start to play I can join that place? And she was like, no, I don't have money. She was doing a lady's hair, but she did have the money. The reason why she didn't give me the money, she probably thought I'm just gonna go to the shop and waste it. Obviously, at that time, £2, we weren't, poor. We weren't like, struggling, but, having 4 kids who just came from Africa that just eats like it's the end of the world. So every pence has to be budget. Can't just be wasting some junky crisp.
Yeah.
But I think that was probably the reason. So obviously, because she did have the money. Anyway, so I said, it's okay. I'll go by myself. And I said, I'll just go and ask. So anyway, as I was walking down by myself, I'm about to cross the road to the Alan Higgs. And before I crossed the road, and this prayer, I'll never forget it. All I said, Lord God, I just came from Africa. So these people that I'm just about to meet, they don't know who I am. I don't know who they are. I've never met them. They've never met me. But all I ask that whatever I say, just make them say yes.
Right.
So anyway, I go there. I watch the last 15 minutes of the training. Kirk Stevens was coaching my age. The training finishes. I'm standing on the door of the AstroTurf of the fence. As they're walking past, I said, "Excuse me, can I join the team?" At that time, my English wasn't great, and he was like, "Sorry, what do you mean you want to join? Did your mom send you here?" He was confused. I was like, "No, I want to play." So he was like, "Right, go to that office, knock there, and then speak to the people. They'll be able maybe more understand." And so that was Ray Gooding and Chris Brown. And so I knocked the door. They come out. They said, "What can we do for you?" I said, "I want to join." And they were like, "You don't just come and turn up." And
right.
And they were like, "We have to come and scout you. If we think you're good enough, then we invite you for a trial." And they said, "Well, what team do you play for?" "Local team." I said, "I don't have any team." I was playing for a local team only. I was training with them for 2 weeks. And then for some reason, I just stopped because I didn't have no transport and stuff. Anyway, so they said, "Okay, but what school do you go to?" So I gave them my school name, South Valley Primary School. And they said, "Well, the next time you go to a school match, send us a letter, an invitation. We'll come and watch you. And then if we think you're good, then we'll invite you for a test." And that was it. And I was buzzing. I was like, in my mind, I was like, "Yeah, I'm already in. I know they're gonna come and watch me, and they're gonna like what they see." So I started to, that excitement, that almost like a leap of woo, sprinting, when you just yeah. So I was happy and then I was start heading back home. There was a hill before you get to the traffic light, to the red light. And then before I crossed to get there, I heard younger. I looked around and I thought, well, there's not anyone else around him, a young kid. They say, young kid, younger, come back. They didn't know my name. So I turn around and they're like, so I go back and they're like, do you have football equipment? I goes, yeah, but I didn't have any. I had to get them the next day.
Right.
And I was like, yeah. And they said, okay, well, come tomorrow at this time and then we'll see. And then we can train us like, so I was buzzing. They were like, and they said, but do you think you're better than what we have here? I said, well, you just have to wait and see. And so I turned up and that was it. I started to train and then I was there on trial it was nearly the end of the season. The season finished and they came back for pre-season and I trained again on trial for like 2 weeks and then I signed. And crazy thing is, my first debut was against Leicester. Fast forward a few years after that, my first team debut is against Leicester. So
it's incredible symmetry, isn't it, about that?
what a fairy tale, man.
Yeah, do you know what? That's probably one of the most enriching, stories of, and you could probably do a whole episode just on that bit, really. In that sense, it's such an incredible sort of moment. But just to sort of take us through, then you obviously then signed professionally at Coventry. I suppose initially starting in the sort of youth football, and then going into the like you say the first team sort of side of it. What is the difference? So obviously I suppose when you're in the youth sort of ranks, you're playing with people your same age and sort of probably same stature. When you then go into sort of reserve and first team football, is it sort of quicker? Is it stronger? What are the sort of big differences football wise, and how did you sort of cope with that if that makes sense?
Yeah, so for me, as soon as I joined, it was just about football. I never even think there was a first team.
All right.
I knew there was a Coventry first team because when my sister at that time, she was playing before I joined Coventry, she already like for some connections, she joined the Coventry Lady Academy girls. So I used to go and watch, and then one day they went to watch the game at the Highfield Road versus Watford, and that's the first time I actually went to see Coventry. But by that time, I had not yet signed for the academy. So my mind was just playing, training, and just enjoying it. Just nothing to worry. And the more I obviously growing, I was an under 12. Josh Ruffle moved up to under 14. He was already like a teenager almost when we were 13, 12. So he moved there, and then I was like, oh, so you do get moved up if you're doing really well. And so I just continued to crack on and just graft. And then the next year I got moved to a year above. I was 13 and then I was playing for 14. And in the same year, I had to go and play for one. I made obviously my debut for under 15 while I was 13. And I was a centre back.
Right.
Yeah. So just chopping people's legs. So that's what I was known as,
Yeah.
And then the managerial for the academy changed. Steve Ogizovic, moved to the first team as the goalkeeping coach, and then Greg Rioch took over and Rich Stevens as head of academy and academy manager. So he basically said after one season, he basically said, it's too easy for me at the back. It's just too easy. I can read the game. I can pass the ball. And he says, and also, I don't think you're gonna grow to be a centre back, especially in England. So he moved me into the midfield, and he said, this is where you're gonna become even more complete player.
Right.
I adapt, and then so that was 15, and then I was playing for under 16. Obviously, my age group, we had some really, really talented boys. Some of them are still in the game: Josh Ruffles, Connor Thomas, Theo Angus, Aaron Phillip. So yeah, some boys who have gone to do the decent careers, played for Coventry as well. It came to under 16. There was a bit of I nearly left Coventry. There was some interest in Man City. This is when Man City just been brought. So this was about the scholarship, turn 16, whether getting a scholarship or not. And then so Aston Villa was that close. But as I said, as the Bible says, many are men's plans, but God directs to those who he is already loved before they even know that he loves them. And so, so I managed to start Coventry. I signed a 1-year scholarship and 2-year pro. So just that transition. But before even that, when I was in school under 14, I would leave once a week. I wouldn't go to school.
Right.
I would go and train with the youth team. So just being in that environment, in that competitive environment, just gave me that drive and that hunger to, and that's when the reality of first team football started to be like, because I'd go and stay with the boys at the lodge. There used to be like rooms at the training ground, and so just being in the changing room and seeing the first team players and stuff, and you see some boys getting called up to train with the first team, and you're like, oh, okay. And so that was, don't want to go into too much details, but that was growing and learning and making mistake and growing, as a young man and as a footballer. And so crazy thing is, I remember a few of the boys. So I was like, I was 15. The youth team boys and some of the boys like in under 16 above. So we're just speaking about like, where do you see yourself in the next 4 years? And he came to me and I said, well, in Premiership.
Right.
They were like, right, okay. But then in my head, I would always say, Lord, I want to make my debut before I'm 18. So anyway, I'm 16 and my first year as a scholarship, doing well. And then the manager at that time was Eddie Bufroyd. And the style that they were playing compared to my style, that goal of me making my debut before I'm 18 just seemed impossible. That season I turned 17, Eddie Bufroyd left just 2 months, I think 3 months before the end of the season, or 2 months or 3 months. And Andy Thorne took over, and they were playing now almost, you call it total football, passing possession game. And so when that season finished, I ended up well in the youth team. And so the next season was the season where I would be turning 18. And so in that preseason, I just worked really hard, and then that's when I got to make my debut before I was 18.
Well, yeah, you sort of mentioned that debut, and I think it's a good point to pause. I think different managers have different styles, but obviously, like you say, Andy Thorne sort of believed in you. But just before the actual game, so say the match day, for example, what are your emotions like? Because obviously you've been on this incredible journey, and like you say, you've sort of feel like you've had these sort of words that you're going to be playing before you're 18, and you're going to go on to maybe play in the Premiership, etc. Does any of that play on your mind on the day of a game, or is it sort of pure football? Do you know what I'm getting at? Like, what is your emotion the day before that the day of that first debut?
There's a scripture in the Bible that says everything works together for the good of those that love God, who are according to his purpose. And so it's just bizarre that it's not bizarre, it's crazy. Just we in that season, prior to the first game of the season against Leicester, so we've playing in preseason games and local teams, and I started doing well, and I was doing well. And then the last game before the last preseason game before Leicester was Norwich. They just got promoted to Premiership. And so on the day before the game against Norwich, the team that is starting is against Norwich. I was not starting. I was on a team that's acting like Norwich. So, and the team that was starting, Connor Thomas, who is my close friend, he was starting. But for no fault of his, it wasn't his, why the team in that session, in that almost 10 minutes, wasn't clicking. And so him obviously being the young player in the team, they basically made a change just to see. And so they swapped me and him.
Right.
And then the team that was starting, then not that I became Messi and Ronaldo in that 10 minutes. No, it just, I don't know. Then the team that was prepared to start, then just flourishing. So they went with that team. And then so when I played against Norwich and I had a good game, it was almost like me booking a ticket to start against against Leicester. So, and then the day before the day before the Leicester game, I was just my brother in the garden, just practicing with me my touch. Like, I was just excited, just looking forward to it.
I was just going to say, I think that you're one of the few people we've spoken to before their first ever professional debut who wasn't nervous. But I think then having spoken to you and what you've gone through and the journey you've been up to that point actually makes sense that really, I suppose, not much after that's going to phase you, is it? In that sense, football's such a gift. I think sometimes we can view it as a, not obviously for you, it is your livelihood. For me, it's a hobby, but do you know what I mean? Like, it is such a gift as well. So I think sometimes we get too bogged down in the sort of the other side of the game. And actually,
no, of course, listen, there's always going to be nerves. There's always going to be some, but it depends how you then channel those nerves. They either get to you or you either turn them to to excitement. Yeah, and obviously just going there, I'm a young player, and I'm just, this is what I love. This is one of my goals that I basically, God is answering my prayer in that sense. It was just a day to just relish, and just did well.
Yeah. Well, you obviously did very well because that the sort of 2011-12 season, you're on a personal level. You got the Apprentice of the Year and all of that kind of recognition. Did you feel a bit more pressure on you then coming towards the end of that season when there was a lot of not maybe spotlight is the right word, I don't know, but do you know what I mean? You were obviously making headlines football wise and things like that. Did you ever feel that sort of pressure, or was it just like almost like you were saying earlier, you just go out?
No, not really. I never actually thought that, because I only played like 26 games. I started well, and I was playing game. The first 10 games I was starting, I was playing well, even though the result was not going our way. Then there was obviously, because of the pressure of the team not winning. So I was then almost rested, or just taking, as I say, manage a young player. So I was starting to go here and then to play with the youth team and the reserve. Then coming to end of the almost 3 months before the end of that season, then I came back again into the picture. But even then, I never, there wasn't, my agent that I was with, there was no, it was Cyril Regis,
Yes, yeah.
So rest in peace. So he was such a mentor, a great mentor to me, such a father figure. Yeah, so there wasn't anything like that. And then there was a change of agency after that season, where, people telling you they're interested, we can get you here, this club is interesting. But my heart for me at that time was always being to stay at Coventry, even though we got relegated. But things happened, being young, and Newcastle, they just had a great season, and they were on a high and on a rise, as to speak, having some very talented players. So a decision was made, and again, it was all for my process to be where I am today. So thanks be to God for that.
Do you, if you're not be asking a slightly personal question, and you don't have to answer it, do you feel like you maybe not left Coventry early? Because obviously the prospect of going to Newcastle, and you mentioned about that word of being in the Premier League, in the next 5 years and all that kind of stuff. Where, I suppose either side of the coin, really. You can't change it, but do you think maybe from a footballing perspective?
Yeah, hindsight, 100%. If my son was in that situation, having the knowledge that I know about football, because I believe that God is leading me and is drawing me. God doesn't care how many Ballon d'Ors I win. He doesn't care how many goals I win. He doesn't care how many attraction I get from the worldwide football. It's how my character develops at the end of my career. And so it's almost been a purifying journey until now, and it's still going. And so if God had not predestined for me to be his and for him to adopt me, as we call in Christian term, being born again, maybe my path would have been me staying at Coventry, but I know it's because God is working in my life. So I'd rather lose the whole world. I'd rather know winning 5 Ballon d'Ors and World Cups and European Cups. Are those things nice in this life? But is it wrong to have goals and to work and to achieve those things for your family? No, of course. But in the bigger picture of life and perspective, there is more than this. That is why my career is the way it is. My attitude, even when I was at Newcastle, now I look back, I know I was lazy. I know I was not disciplined, right, as I thought I was, as I thought people thought that I was. And so hindsight, when it comes to football, like I said, if I had my son was in that situation, not just because of what I just mentioned, this is just my journey, but for his development as well, as mentally, you have to build your foundation. My foundation in career-wise was not built properly.
Yeah.
And so, going to Newcastle, it's almost like you've got this beautiful house. Your career is looking all mansioned, but your foundation is weak. And when you go through different trials and different setbacks, because your foundation is not really being really built properly, you see so many more talented players than me. They just get faded.
Yeah.
An injury or something happens in their family, and a tragedy, or they just get into a wrong relationship, or They just gone through a phase where now they're gambling, they're doing this, they're into alcohol, they're into drugs, they're just caught up with the wrong group. And foundation, because it's weak, but if your foundation is strong, and so that goes to any young player. So as much as going there looks all nice and all the glamorous that comes with it, to get to the top is, yes, it requires hard work, but it requires even more determination, more discipline to stay there. So what I've learned, I'm rich with this knowledge. I may not have the wage of Ronaldo or some players that I've played with that are earning, but I have something that they don't know have.
I think that's it. I genuinely think that's incredible. And I think we're, from the outside, we just see, the player moves from club A to club B, and we don't take into account any of that. And I think that's, and actually, I just want to say on a personal level, I know what you're saying about your career, but I don't view your career as, up and down or anything like that. It's just the journey you're on. And like you say, you're richer for that. But yeah, so on that, I think it's your story, and that's what we're here to sort of tell, really. And
and it's not over. It's not over yet.
Exactly. Just on that in Newcastle, you sort of answered a few of my next few questions, but one thing I wanted to talk to you about, and it's something you've obviously mentioned about in terms of your faith and being a Christian, and you're the first person that I've spoken to who is being open about their faith. I think there are other pros who I've probably spoken to that maybe haven't. From the outside, the Premier League there's lots of money thrown around, and I'm just using this as an example. You don't need to comment on personal sort of circumstances. In that bubble of the Premier League, what are the sort of challenges, I suppose, of being a Christian because of the lifestyle that people perceive that you have, even if you don't have it, if that makes sense?
Not only just in Premiership. And what I'm trying to get to is, first of all, there are people who say they've been raised up, as I said, you can be raised up as a Muslim, as a Christian, or as a Buddhist, or as a Judaism, as this and this. And people might say, well, I've got a relationship with God. I worship God. But the matter of the fact, the truth is, I can say I believe in mercy. I can say I believe mercy exists, but that doesn't mean I know mercy. That doesn't mean I believe in mercy. If Messi was to say to me, stop playing football today, if I do that, that means I believe in Messi. So there's a different side of belief. Just because you claim to believe, that doesn't mean that you believe in that in somebody that you're claiming to believe. So there's a depth and there's a secret, there's a mystery in that. And so those who are sincere in seeking their faith, in pursuing their faith, to know, to understand who this God is, to understand him and to know him, the world in general, and especially as a footballer, you're a believer, and what God is calling you, what God is instructing you to do, the world of football is pulling you in the other direction. Fame is about me. Pride, me first, recognition, me. I need to start. I need to be playing every day. People need to know how amazing I am and and what such a great talent I've got. Me. I need to be the one in the newspaper. It's be my face. It has to be me who wins the best. So it's a driven self industry, and many industries in the world like that. But as a believer in this point, where you're being told die to self, but in football you're being told live for yourself.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's hard because you as a flesh, those are the things that you're attracted to. That's what the gravitation pulls you that side. But my faith says I'm not just a flesh and bones. I'm not just this flesh and bone, because when I die, my body decays. So my body is just dust. It just returns to dust where it was made from. But the real me, I'm a spiritual being. So my spirit and my flesh contradicts each other. My spirit wants to go this way, my flesh wants to go this way. So it is that battle, that wrestling. And so, but the one who you give into grow and become stronger and become in more control. But if you are in the world of football where, selfishness and parties and glamorous and money, the Bible says that the love of money is the root of all evil. Money is not evil, but the love of it. Football is offering you that you're going to have peace if you become famous and you have all these glamorous and you have all these riches of the world and money and cars and millions in your bank account, and everybody loves you and adore you and you're famous and that you're going to be happy and you're going to be, but you're not. That doesn't give you peace. I've got that piece now. It's such a dark industry.
Yeah.
Inside, on the outside, it looks beautiful, glamorous.
Yeah.
People be saying, why are you complaining? You only have to just train and kick football and you're earning all this money. Yes, that is, you're right. But you won't know it until you're in it.
No, I appreciate you opening up about that. And I think that's just the last sentence you said there. I think it does get lost otherwise. It's quite hard to follow up talking about football after that, really, because it was such an amazing moment. But sort of in terms of your career, obviously at Newcastle, we suppose we mentioned about that, that transition of going from, say, Coventry to Newcastle. But there's obviously the man who signed you, Alan Pardew, would be quite an enigmatic character, I suppose, from the outside. What was he like to sort of play for? And I suppose, like you just mentioned about maybe some of those things of being a Premier League footballer, he has a bit of a reputation on the outside of it. What's he like to work with, basically?
Of course, the first time you meet people you've never met, there is that sort of like, okay, he's that respect. And even with the players, when I got there, and I was like, oh, there's Coloccini, there's Chiote, there's Benafra. But as soon as I was there, start training, I signed, everything was done. It was just about me coming there and just play football. And that season, he was, he gave me the opportunity. Obviously, there was a lot of players who had a lot of injuries, many key players, which opened an opportunity for me. Yet he's saying that I put myself in a position where when that happened, I was the next in line. So I worked hard in that preseason and I earned a lot of people respect, to play and to start matches. And like I said, again, back in those days and a few other times where people have asked me what's happened, your relationship with him, what was it like? And I, before in my foolishness, I was quick and in my pride to trying to like protect myself and to almost make him look as he's the one that has made my career become the way it is, which he's not.
Right.
He's not at all. No manager that I've ever worked under that they've had power over my career. But all I can do is I'm grateful that he gave me that opportunity. He was the one that gave me the opportunity to play in Premiership and to play against, like I said, I never thought that I'll ever play with Paul Scholes, against Paul Scholes. I probably, by the time when I used to think he's going to retire, by the time I didn't get a chance to play in that level. So even just going back to what I was saying, I remember back in Africa when I'd watch them against Real Madrid, in the Champions League, and it didn't even look real. I just thought they were just, PlayStation. So yeah, I'll always be, grateful that he trusted me, him playing a young player and trusting a young and giving a player, he gave many players opportunities. So his career was on the line. For him to do that is no a matter of an easy decision.
Yeah, as again, I think we're sort of slightly swayed by media outlets and stuff like that, and you see so and so's reputation, etc. And actually, it's quite nice to hear that maybe it's not all as we seem, in that sense. But you mentioned about opportunities. Part of your career obviously was playing in Europe as well, in the Europa League with Newcastle. Just from a footballing perspective, quickly, what is there a difference between say playing in England and Europe? And what I mean is from here we sort of sit here and we always go, oh yeah, European football's slower, you can't foul, you can't, it's not as physical, that kind of stuff. Is that true? Or when you're actually on the pitch, what is the sort of difference really?
I think it's again, understanding. It's two different things, because you can be physical, as in the tackles are like, ouch, ooh, I wouldn't want to go in those ones, the 50-50s are just crunchies and so that looking at that, you're like, whoa, this is physical. But then there's other physical of the fitness side and the speed side of it and the powers side of it. So the higher you go, those stuff increase speed, power, fitness, and the speed of the game. So in Europe, yes, majority of people talk about football, the European side is slow. But then they do it for a purpose.
Yeah.
And it's about making the ball do all the talking. Right. Because nobody can run more faster than the ball. So it's draining the opponent's energy. So now then, because their energies have been used, now we can use our energy. Now we've got an upper hand. So talking about England football and Europe, there is, of course, in England, you are more, focus on more of the physical of the body and the gym session. These other countries, they do gym as well, but it's different. Yes, they do gym, the exercise that they do in that gyms, two different things and produce two different results. That's the difference. You know, and so, and obviously that's up to the person who is in charge, the manager. We can have a European side where the manager wants his team to be physical in that sense of strong and big and, you know, tackling and hard and that sort of way. But it's good to see how majority of England, England, like the game is changing. Most, you know, obviously Guardiola's come and Jon at Liverpool, Arsene Wenger before, and so you can see even the smaller clubs, everybody wants to almost start getting into that mindset of the Europeans.
Yeah, I think it's no. I appreciate, as I say, you're one of the few players you've spoken to who've played in European competition like that. So, and obviously you did have a good run with Newcastle, but I suppose later on we'll fast forward a little bit now in terms of, you know, you ended up, like we mentioned about symmetry earlier on in your career and, you know, where you thought you were going to be and stuff. And, you know, you went from Newcastle to sort of Coventry back there. Obviously, initially on loan, was it always the intention to eventually make it a permanent move? It was. And in that sense, I suppose, did you know necessarily this situation you were signing up for footballing wise? You know, because I suppose Coventry that season didn't quite in terms of the league, we'll get onto the cup in a minute, but in terms of the league, didn't quite go the way obviously they'd have liked. Did you sort of know that before you went in there, if that makes sense?
Yeah, we had a lot of, it was a young squad, very talented young squad. We were playing really good football, and we were just our end product as a team in general, not just one person. But obviously in League One, you need to get as many wins as you can, even if you get them horribly. And so there's a saying my friend always says, you finish how you've started. If you want to finish well, you give yourself a chance to start well. And in these leagues are difficult once you've started, you go in games after games and you're not picking points. And obviously there was we had like 4 different managers in the end in that season. So yeah, it was just that lack of knowing how to put ourselves in a strong position and kill teams. But in the end, toward the end of that season, we started to, there was more stability when Mark Robbins came in.
Well, you sort of mentioned that stability, and obviously that led to, you know, playing in the final at Wembley, which on a personal level, I know you sort of said earlier about maybe not, you know, you don't do it for the personal glory, but obviously there have been some, you know, personal moments for you in your career. So in terms of obviously scoring at Wembley and winning the EFL trophy, when you're playing in those sort of games and, you know, there's thousands of people at a stadium like Wembley, I know it sounds silly, and obviously you played at St James's Park as well. Can you hear what's going on around you? Like, can you hear sort of teammates? And because obviously, you know, someone like me who plays grassroots football, you'd be lucky if there's 10 people watching you. So if someone shouts man on or whatever, I know it sounds silly, but you know what's going on. Whereas in that environment, can you or not? How does that sort of work?
It's weird. Like, you have to pick moments where you communicate, because you can't just be yada, 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 yada. Like, of course, there are times where fans, like, it's almost like a hush, you know, there's a time when then they pick it up, the loud, the noise, and then that's when it becomes difficult. Then you have to really shout and almost call the person 3 times for them to like try and understand you. But yeah, so it depends in what moods the fans are in.
And obviously, I suppose in that final, obviously I know you're known in terms of scoring that you know, the first goal, but obviously when you were 2-0 up, Oxford then pulled one back, and I think what people forget was you obviously cleared one off the line literally at the very end as well, didn't they? You know, so. At that moment, did your heart sort of drop? You know, what sort of just talk me through that corner? You know, the keeper's up, everything. What are you sort of going through your head at that point?
Yeah, it was weird. It was weird because it was actually Josh Ruffles who used to be Coventry, and so he actually headed it.
Right.
Lee Bird saved it, and then somehow it ricocheted, but then it was almost gonna be almost like an own goal. Normally, you panic in those moments. You just want to clear and get it out as far as you can, but I literally just reached out my foot like that and almost just stopped it. So what I'm saying now, it seems like I was thinking all of these things, but in that moment, so that's why even just football is it's not as easy as people think, because you have to make almost 3 decisions in a split of a second. And obviously that comes by repetition, training. And so in that moment, my reaction just literally stop the ball. Normally in that reaction, like I said, you panic, you want to just clear it.
Yeah.
But if I probably did that, I probably hit against Lee Burge and then it would probably go in, or I would probably like hit one of the Oxford players. There's a lot of players in that box, and so there was almost like a transcend piece. It was weird. It was even after the game, the analysis guy at Coventry, he just said it seemed like there was somebody there with you on that pitch today. Yeah, that game, we were the underdogs, and we were having, obviously, in the league, we were not doing well. Prior to that, Oxford already beat us at the ground 5-1. But before that, the day before that, I was just praying, and I woke up and I was just at peace from the time I left the hotel to the training ground, preparing myself, and just listening to a worship song that says, "I'm no longer slaves to fear." And then going to that game, I wasn't like, of course, it's a final. There's the cup at the end of the match, but I wasn't like win, win, win. I was just in the moment. And I remember I prayed, and as I said that prayer, and I heard a similar voice, I just know nobody. It's difficult to explain. The same voice that said to me, "Go and play." I heard, "Yeah, but you are my son as well." And from that, you can even see after the team talk, there was just something in me in that game, that just power. And obviously my daughter just been born the day before that. So yeah, it was 2 days that I'll never stand as a memorial.
One thing I wanted to sort of talk to you about, when you make a move, so obviously, unfortunately with Coventry, it, didn't quite go the way you wanted, but you went to Motherwell. But what I wanted to talk to you is not just about that move specifically, but when you've been moving clubs, particularly like you then mentioned about having a family and things like that, how much of an influence does that have on where your next club might be? And, what sort of thought process do you go through? Because I suppose at that stage, it's not just, right, here's the football.
Yeah, no, 100%. You've hit the nail on the head that it changes. When you're single to when you're in a relationship, your husband, you're a dad. You just want to do the right thing. First of all, your family is always first. Family is bigger than your work, than your family, than whatever your gift. And so to do what's right for them, but at the same time, not to forsake that's your career. So it's having that balance, and even now I'm growing in that, and so just planning to become a better husband and a better dad, and so it's just a privilege. It's a privilege.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sort of being so honest about that. So just before we talk about your sort of time at Glentoran, it'd be remiss of me not to talk about international football, because obviously, a huge part of your career. You've obviously were in a unique position of people we've spoken to that, as part of your international journey, I suppose there was multiple teams that you could have represented, and eventually you end up playing for Burundi. So we'll talk about maybe the last AFCON tournament in a bit, but just up to that point, how did you end up making that decision? Because obviously there was periods where you played for England, and is it just football based, or is it about that sort of pride almost of where you're from, and the best opportunities as well? Because different countries can offer you different opportunities, aren't they? What sort of goes into that?
Yeah, well, when I went with England in the 20 at the World Cup, in one of the interviews, that's how I felt. I was grateful that this country has given me, talking about England, has given me an opportunity, open a door for my mom and my parents and my brothers, and the opportunity to be where I am today. So I would love to represent the country. And that tournament didn't go well. Again, the Lord had different plans. Yeah, just whenever, like I said, looking back, I know it was not meant to be. Burundi is such a country that there is no many hopes, or no hope at all. Even Burundians themselves who live in Burundi hate the country.
Right.
They still dislike the country. Not everybody, obviously, people still, they still love the country, but in that sense, they want to leave the country. They don't want to, and so it's easy for me to say, well, why don't they stay there? They need to love the country, stay there, but it's difficult. And so it was from that place of, this is bigger than my career. England will always produce better bigirimanas. It's an opportunity. Maybe I was made for such a time as this, as the Bible says. And so that's why I love my country, where I was born in, and I'm passionate about it, and I'm believing for more, God's work to be done through me there.
You mentioned that. I suppose if you know what me saying, I don't want to be like, I don't want to sound imperial when I say this, but when you have a footballing reputation like yours, do you feel like it's as much your job, as well as to obviously deliver on the football pitch, but to the reputation of the country is a bit more at stake with people like yourself, if that makes sense? And there's other examples of other players maybe in other countries, maybe more so across Africa, but do you know what I'm getting at, that sort of thing?
100%. International is a country. When you're playing for a club, it's just a club, it's a city, it's a town. But international is a country. You're representing a country. You have the responsibility almost of a soldier. You are carrying the flag of the country. You're an ambassador of the country. Yeah, so the responsibility is, I'm aware of it. And that's why my mindset is changed where God has brought me to this. So everything I do is to honor the company that is taking care of me, which is Glentoran Football Club now, and to give my best whenever I'm given an opportunity. And then at the same time, I know the big responsibility. So even if I might have going through a difficult time at my club, but there's a bigger picture.
Well, I'll be honest, it's one of my favourite tournaments to watch. So you've got another Burundi fan in me anyway. So you mentioned about obviously, it must have been an amazing experience, obviously representing your country at a tournament like that. But back to sort of club football, you mentioned that obviously you're at Glentoran. How did that move come about? And it's such an amazing brand of football to watch. But why Glentoran of all the places you could have gone, really? Because there must have been interest, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there was 100%. There was a lot of interest after the African Cup. Personally, I did well. It was our first time in there. A lot of experience to learn, and that's why we really relishing for this next time, God willing. And yeah, there was clubs in majority of them like abroad, Asia, Middle East. There was one in Portugal, first division in the Portugal Premiership. I came back here. I was out of contract with the club in Hibernian that summer, and I wanted actually to be in England. That's why I wanted to prefer to be close to the family. My kids, having a child, 2 children, was gonna have my boy was gonna be born, and so for that reason, we turned the Portugal league down. In that summer, I was waiting for a trial. I went to try on Dungannon. It wasn't meant to be. I kept waiting. I kept waiting. My agent was saying this, I'm speaking to clubs, waiting. From July, when I came back from the tournament, July passed, August, no club. By the end of September, I'm training by myself, but it's different. I need to be, if a club is gonna come for me, whenever that's gonna be, I need to be in that rhythm with being in contact with other teams. So Solihull was there, close 30 minutes from Coventry. So I reached to them to just see if I can train with them. So I was there for almost like 3 weeks. And at that time, nothing was happening. So by the time that October was we were about to enter into October, I just thought, the next transfer, but now the transfer is closed. Obviously, I was a free agent, I could go anytime, but the next transfer is January. Let me just sign here with Solihull. And so that was there, but my mind was not really as a professional. I was just in a difficult situation, just going at that time, having no house, having to stay with my in-laws, no having a wage. Yeah, it was a difficult time, but January came, so the contract at Solihull finished. I had a trial in Croatia. I went there for 7 days, did well. They liked me. I liked the place. I was excited. Played good football. I know I was gonna improve. And then there was an injury. I come back to Coventry to speak to my wife. Are we gonna start packing and planning out to move? And then as I'm about to go back to sign the deal that we already agreed before I left, the manager calls me. I'm at the airport and he says, "Where are you? Before you leave, don't leave yet. Don't fly." I'm about to board the plane. Literally about 15 minutes before I board the plane to go to France, then France, Turkey, to Croatia. So I says, "Well, what do you want me to do?" He says, "Okay, just wait. We're gonna let you know because the striker got injury, had a hamstring the last game we just played preseason. And obviously, if we need to check if it's a short-term injury, if it's a long-term injury, then our priority is to get another striker." And then so that was that. That's how that came of it. And the striker had a minor. I spoke to him when I was there. We got on. It was a minor, so it wasn't big. But they ended up signing another striker, and then that just faded away. Just like almost 1 month after that, boom, COVID. So everything shut down. Nothing. So I just had to train by myself. Had to go back to no wage. All my savings that I had at Newcastle, I was led to invest it in something, and the investment went bankrupt. Yeah, just from the top all the way back to when I came to England when I was on a child benefit. Steve Robinson at Motherwell, who was at Motherwell, we're still in touch. And then, so obviously him being from Northern Ireland, he contacted these guys and he says, "Hey, there's this player, he's free, get in touch." And they said, "Well, we'll love you to come here, see what it's like, and then come and let us talk. And if anything doesn't happen in England, those options that you've got, then you've got an opportunity here." So I was at peace, and I know that God has brought me here. And I'm glad because just coming here to Glentoran Football Club, the football and the football pitch, there is this big sign, "Christ our Savior." And then you go to Port Down.
Yeah.
And life without Jesus makes no sense. So Glentoran, the had just done it. Apparently, they used to have just one that says Jesus, massive one, massive one. So where the Lord is, that is the best place for me to be. If this is where I am, we are happy, me and my wife. I'm excited, even with being in lockdown and all what that comes with. But life goes on. What is good all the time.
Just a lot. We sort of finished on some quick fire ones, really, Gail. And you've probably been asked some of these before, but hopefully not all of them. But before we do that, I just wanted to really quickly touch on, have you thought about maybe what might happen after football? Because obviously you can't play forever, as much as we'd love to. Have you maybe thought about what's going to happen that day that you have to hang them up? Or is that not really even in you? Because you're still, very young in your career, but it's maybe something, you think about eventually, isn't it?
Yeah. It's wise to do that. I know it might not answer the question, but just taking every day as it comes, but without in mind. I'm passionate about the game. So if I still if God still wants, my character needs to continue to be developed, which it will till my time comes to an end here on the earth. At this moment, there is nothing else that comes to my mind apart from being in football, whether it's play as long as I can, whether it's going into coaching and doing my coaching badges and whatever. So as I said, I'm passionate about the game, and there's so much principles that football can teach you, as not just as a footballer, but as generally in life.
I think it's football will always be better for people like yourself in it. So hopefully you do stay in the game. But I'll just finish off with the quick fire ones because we do it with every guest. So the first one is your favourite ground that you've ever played at.
I played at some decent grounds. Played the one in Benfica, Old Trafford, Emirates, obviously St James Park. I guess Wembley. I guess Wembley. Yeah, I mean the historic of the place. I remember Peter Beasley after the final. He says, "Hey, not many players have scored at Wembley."
Yeah. That's true. It's very true. You're on a very select list, aren't you, in that sense? The next one, we've only just sort of started this question, so it's a bit of an odd question, but I'm sort of fascinated by football boots. So if you could choose one pair of boots from your career, that you would not necessarily brought you most success, but might have been the most comfortable, or just ones that if you could wear them again, what would be your favourite pair of football boots?
Adi Puros.
Oh, really? Right. Okay. What colour?
There's ones I used to wear that were red, and when I just broke through a Coventry. Right. But there's other ones, just recent ones, not recent ones, but almost like 2 years ago, something like that. They were all white and blue, and they've got like a line in the front of the boots. So they're one of the comfort boots I've wear.
You're a lot more skillful than me, so you can get away with them. I probably couldn't, but it's, you've probably been asked this tons, but it's just fascinating to hear. The best player you've played with and the best player you've played against.
Well, for me as a midfielder, the one who I would say against, because I'm a midfielder and I used to look up to him, is Scholes. The one that I've played with is Ben Afra.
Yeah,
he had the ability to be one of the greatest. A nice guy as well too.
Yeah. And then the very last question, Gail, before I let you go. The first one is your favourite ever game you've played in. And then the second one is the favourite ever game you've watched. So you couldn't have been involved in it. So you might have been in the stands, you might have been watching it on TV.
Well, the one that I've been involved in would be the Wembley one.
Yeah.
The one that I've watched. The Ghana versus Uruguay 2010 World Cup. Yeah, that was mental. Obviously Ghana was about to break the record being the first African Cup to, I think, quarterfinals or semi-finals, I think. I don't know. And what happened in our house when someone again missed that penalty?
Yeah.
The things that my sister said.
Well, I actually went to Ghana the year before. I lived out there for a little while. So I was obviously in 2009. So for me to see Ghana, I think at that point, just on a side note, you could tell it was that sort of golden generation. But Gail, I've got to be honest, they're two incredible games to finish with. And it's been a fascinating insight into your career. And I genuinely really appreciate you being so honest about that. So
pleasure, man. Just made me, as I look back, you glimpse back, see how far you've come, and it strengthens you, it encourages you to keep advancing and creating more new chapters and new memories and mountains and hills to climb up and down.